Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Cooking with Holiday Leftovers. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Lynn Mattis, and I work in the Alumni Relations Office here at Mohawk College. Today, we will be learning two different recipes that we can cook using our holiday leftovers from Hanukkah and Christmas, and daily leftovers we find in our fridge. I know for me personally, after the holidays especially, I end up reheating and eating the same meal over and over. So I'm really excited today to learn about how we can transform some of these leftovers into something new and delicious. It is now my pleasure to introduce our special guest. Joyce Young, also known as Joyce of Cooking, is a Hamilton-based food blogger with over 10 years of experience in the restaurant industry. With a love for sharing her passion for cooking, Joyce will be walking us through stir-fry noodle and spring roll recipes using our leftovers. And with that, I hand the mic over to you, Joyce.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much for having me. Like you mentioned, my name is Joyce from the blog Joyce of Cooking, and you'll see two screens today. One is like the full view over here, as well as a close-up view of what we're going to be cooking today. So you can switch from one to the other if you like. I think you guys are going to put it on Spotlight as well, so you can see both screens. But we're going to be creating two dishes today, two of my favorite Asian dishes with leftovers. And I'll also be sharing some tips in terms of how to save money while grocery shopping, how to stretch your dollar, and just overall tricks and tips on how to be more sustainable in the kitchen. So first thing first, what I really wanted to mention is whether it's the holiday time or just any day when you're deciding what to cook, or hey, I need to go to the grocery store to buy something, the number one tip I always give people is to always shop your own kitchen before you shop the grocery store. And what I mean by that is to open your fridge, open your pantry, and have a really good look at what you have left over before you start buying more stuff. So a good example is, sometimes we buy vegetables with every good intention to eat it. However, sometimes it kind of gets stuck in the back of the fridge and we forget about it, and we buy new stuff and we don't see it. So if you kind of dig through your fridge first and see what you have, you might have some really great ingredients that you can still use for a great meal without even having to step out to buy anything new. So today, when we make our spring rolls, I'm going to give you a couple of options because obviously everyone cooks different food for the holidays, whether you celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, or maybe it's just an everyday thing you have left over of. So I'll give you a couple of options. But generally speaking, spring rolls in Chinese cuisine is a very popular dish that we have during like Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year. It's usually has veggies in it. Sometimes it has some meat in it as well. So depending on your dietary needs, you can cater it to whatever you like. So I'm going to make a veggie version today with only a couple of ingredients. So if during the holiday season, you are making a salad with like cabbage or carrots or like a coleslaw, and generally you buy like a head of cabbage that is ginormous, like the size of your head, and likely you're not going to use it all, right? So one thing that I normally do is I cut, whatever I'm going to use for that recipe. And then the rest of it, I usually cut into shreds or use a box grater, like a cheese grater, and grate it down. And then I freeze it because I know sometimes I can't finish my cabbage, in a reasonable time. So I know that way it's not going to go bad. You can also just freeze the whole head if you want to, like if you're going to make cabbage rolls in, January, and you don't want to shred it up, you can cut whatever you're using, and the part that you're not using, put it into a Ziploc bag. As long as you squeeze all the air out, put it in the freezer, you can definitely use it for other recipes in the new year as well. So if you're making coleslaw for a holiday and you have some carrots and cabbage left over, you can make spring rolls with it. If you wanted to kind of up the protein game with this recipe, you can definitely add some of your leftover turkey, if you're cooking chicken. If you are a vegetarian and not eating any meat, but you have like tofu or tempeh, you can also cut that into it as well. But I'll just show you a really, really simple way of making spring rolls. So if you wanted to, if you have more time, you can also make spring roll wrappers yourself. And spring roll wrappers and dumpling wrappers is really just two ingredients. It's just flour and water. But due to timing, and you can buy these fairly cheap at the grocery store now, these wrappers. It's made exactly the same way with just water and flour. The one that you buy in store may have additional ingredients to make it last longer, but generally speaking, it's just 2 ingredients here. And again, you can buy the whole pack and freeze whatever you're not using. So we'll just set that aside for now, and I'll go over the ingredients that go inside. So we're gonna cut up some cabbage, and I also have some yellow carrots that I used up for another recipe before, but it's already diced up into really fine cubes. So it doesn't even have to like look the same at all. So we're gonna chop up some of our cabbage here as well. And with cabbage, it does last quite a bit in the fridge anyways, but it's actually really easy to grow. So if you have even like a small garden or like a pot with soil during the summer, you can actually grow cabbage really easily. And they actually like the cold, so it doesn't have to be super, super hot to grow cabbage. So you can even start it out in like March of next year and grow your own cabbage, which is very satisfying, but much cheaper as well when you grow your own veggies. So we have some cabbage, carrots, and then with all Asian dishes, we usually add a little bit of ginger and garlic. So ginger and garlic are probably the 2 main flavor components. And really it's up to you in terms of how much you love ginger and garlic, in terms of how much you want to add in. But for a spring roll recipe, I usually add 1 to 2 cloves of garlic, which I'll peel and cut into fine pieces. And then with our ginger, I usually put like maybe an inch size piece into it. And all of the veggie scraps that we're not using, I have a little bowl. I always recommend just having like a little bowl. So you kind of just throw in all of your veggie scraps as you cook in here. And the reason why I do this is because at the end of it, I put it into a Ziploc bag and I freeze it. Generally, it takes maybe like a week to 2 weeks, depending on how much fresh veggies you're cooking with, to get enough to make stock. So you can actually take all of your frozen veggie bits and you can boil it with just some water and you create your own veggie stock, which is much more tastier in my opinion, but also you're not wasting any of that scrap. And all you need to do is just bring a big pot of water to a boil, and you boil the veggie scraps for like about an hour. And then you can freeze the veggie stock, you can jar them up and put them in your fridge, but then you have homemade veggie stock ready to go, which is super nice. And really you can put any veggie scrap. So today we might have some carrot, cabbage, if you have some onions, anything, you can kind of throw it in there. If you do like something like beets, for example, the color might be changed due to the fact that you're using beets, but the taste is still going to be fine. So as long as you don't really mind the color wise, you can really put anything you like in there. So I'm just going to chop up the garlic and set it aside here. And then with our ginger, like I was saying before, we're going to just do a small piece. If you like the ginger flavor, the spiciness of the ginger more, you can definitely add more. The easiest way to peel a ginger is actually with a spoon. So if you just take a good old spoon and you just scrape it down, you'll start peeling just the skin. So I'll just show you. Instead of using like a peeler or a knife to cut it, you end up wasting a lot of the flesh of the ginger. When you use the spoon method, very little ginger gets wasted. It's just really the skin. And again, you can throw this into your veggie stock pile, or you can actually, if you like ginger tea, you can put this, just wash it with a little bit of water, and then you can use boiling water and make yourself some fresh ginger tea as well, which is really nice. So every little bit doesn't get wasted. And then after you make your ginger tea or your stock, then you can throw all of the veggie scraps into your compost bin at that point, but then you kind of really used up everything that you need to. So with your ginger, you can just cut it into little pieces. If you have like a small grater, you can also grate it in whatever you like. Today, I'm just going to chop it up finely. And again, ginger garlic is just, you know, what you prefer. If you don't like these flavors, or you have little kids that are going to eat the spring rolls and you don't want to make it super spicy with the ginger, you can definitely omit that. Okay, so we're going to just put it all into the pile here. And then what I have here is just a regular old pan, but we're going to just cook up some of the ingredients. And the reason why I cook up the ingredients first before wrapping it is because the cabbage and the carrot tends to be a little bit harder. So if I just wrap the raw veggie ingredients into the spring roll wrap and then cook it, the inside won't get as soft as I want it to. So I want to kind of give it a little bit of a head start. So another way to kind of save and reuse your holiday leftover is if you deep fried anything during the holiday. So if I know a lot of people are experimenting with deep frying turkeys, but you do have a big vat of oil afterwards that you might not know what to do. You don't actually need to throw that all out. You can actually save and filter it with like a coffee filter. And you can use the oil whenever you're cooking. So in this pot, I have some oil that I fried like French fries with before. You can filter it. And then whenever you're cooking, you can just put a little bit in like you normally do for any dish, and you can reuse that oil. So pan is on about a medium heat. Put some oil in here. I'm going to put in my carrot, my cabbage, my ginger, and my garlic in here as well. And really you want to just saute it up a little bit so that the veggie gets softened. And it doesn't take too long to do. And I also like to add just a little bit of seasoning to it as well. So soy sauce and a little bit of sesame oil are my go-to flavors. So I just drizzle a little bit of both in here. And sesame oil goes a long way, so you don't need a lot of it. It's very, very much full in flavor. So you don't want to go too heavy on that. But we're going to just go ahead and saute this up until the veggies are cooked and a little bit soft. And like I was saying, like if you had, like I have some tofu left over from another dish. If you wanted to, you can chop this up into fine cubes and add it in here. If you had turkey, ham, chicken, whatever protein that you had for your holidays, you can definitely add it in here as well. Mushrooms will also be a great addition to spring rolls. If you have any kind of leftover mushroom as a side dish, you can chop it up finely, add it into the pan as well. So once the ingredients are nice and soft here, I will show you how to roll. Let me just move this guy out of the way. So like I was saying, you can get these wrappers in a square shape. So generally they come in these square shapes. These are the larger size. There's a smaller version. And I think there's actually even a bigger size to this one as well. But whatever size you like to use, you can get those. If you make your own dough, it's just water, flour, you mix it until you get a dough consistency, and then you roll it out as thinly as possible with a rolling pin. And then you can use a knife or cookie cutter to cut into the shapes that you want. And then in terms of rolling, you just need a little bit of water as well to kind of put everything together. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our filling that we just made, and we're going to put in a little bit in the middle towards closer towards your body. So if you're kind of facing it, you want the filling more closer to your body. And then you can put a little bit more here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to imagine wrapping it up like a burrito. You want to make sure the filling kind of stays inside, but we want to tuck the edges in as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the two sides on our left and right side. We're going to tuck it in first so that it looks like two folded lines on the side. And then we're going to take the bottom edge closest to our body, and we're going to just roll. And as you roll, just gently tuck in the ingredients on the top over here so nothing is spilling out. And then we're gonna just roll until we get all the way to the end. Once you get to the end, if you're making your own dough, it will be stickier, so you can just kind of stick it to itself. But I find when you buy the grocery store ones, it's a little bit drier, so you do need a little bit of water. And then you can just use the water like glue, and you can just seal it in like this. So then now you have this beautiful spring roll filled with your veggie leftovers. And you don't have to even cook this right away. You can make a whole whack load of them all at once first and then freeze them. So generally what we do is we take a tray, we wrap them all up and line them up so that they're not sticking together. We throw them into the freezer for maybe like 10-15 minutes until they harden up. Then we put them all into a Ziploc bag and just label them veggie spring rolls. And you know, maybe a few months later, you have a craving for spring rolls, then you can dig them out of your freezer and you can just fry them from frozen. If you have an air fryer, you can use an air fryer as well, like set it to maybe 400 degrees, and you can do 3 minutes per side, depending on how big they are and if they're fully frozen. But you can easily make them in your air fryer as well if you don't want to fry them up. So just roll another one to show you guys. So same thing, put it all to the edge on the bottom. We're gonna roll the 2 sides in first and then tuck it in. And you want to resist the urge of putting too much filling in, because if you put too much filling in, it'll burst. And when you cook them, when you fry them or put them into your air fryer, it will burst and it just won't be the same. So we'll just seal this guy up here as well. And now we have these 2 little cute spring rolls, and I'll show you how to fry them up as well. Do you guys have any questions so far? Let me just move this pan out of the way, and then we can fry it up. So same thing, again, like I was saying, you can reuse the oil that you use for any other frying purposes. When you're frying, deep frying, just be careful. You want to make sure you just are extremely careful. If you have children in the house, make sure they're not around. Obviously the hot oil, it will be very, very hot when you're deep frying. Generally, I like to put it into like a medium heat, let it go for a little bit. And then once the oil is ready, I gently drop in 1 to 2 spring rolls at a time and let it cook. So we'll just wait for that guy to warm up. And then in the meantime, we'll talk about our noodles that we're going to be making. So so let's say like you're celebrating Hanukkah and you have some beef brisket left over, or during Christmas, you have some turkey left over. The number one thing is, if you know you're not going to eat all your leftover, or you just don't like eating the same things over and over again for like a week, 2 weeks, what I would recommend is to portion whatever leftover you have into containers like this, or even like the Ziploc bag, and just put it right into the freezer and label it, whatever it is. This way you don't force yourself to eat the same things again and again because it's in your fridge, but also it will last a lot longer in the freezer in comparison to the fridge. So if you froze anything, like now, you can eat it no problem a few months later. And you know, if you're busy come March and you really need a good quick meal, you can easily dig into your freezer, grab whatever you need, and just defrost it and warm it up that way. And you have a beautiful, healthy meal that way too. If you want to use up all of your leftover for a noodle dish, there's a number of noodles that you can use. You can use anything from good old spaghetti. You can use any kind of pasta shape you have as well. You don't need to buy anything new or fancy. If you have like the packs of ramen noodles in your house already, you can use those as well. Today, I'm going to use a Chinese egg noodle. I just have it in water to soften it up for now, but this is what we're going to be using today. And generally they come in like a pack of 6 little pucks of noodles, and you can boil them or just soak them in water to soften it up. You can make your own noodles if you want, similar to like making your own pasta noodles, but really the idea is to use whatever noodles you have at home. Okay, so let's see if the oil is ready. So I'm just gonna drop this guy in, put a little bit more water to seal it up. And whenever you're deep frying anything, just make sure when you drop it into the oil to drop it away from you. So if there are any splashes, it's gonna go that side as opposed to splashing up to you. So we're gonna just gently drop this guy in. And it's bubbling away, which means the oil is hot enough. And then what I'll do is I'll just make sure that it doesn't stick by giving it a good turn. And since the filling is cooked already, it will take no time to cook the inside. Really the idea is to just cook the front, the wrap, so that it becomes nice and crispy, which will take no time at all. And then I'll put the second guy in as well. And again, put it facing the other way. And if you are going to freeze them and cook them later, don't deep fry them and then freeze it, because once you deep fry them and try to freeze it or even put it in the fridge, it will just get soggy. So you want to freeze it before you fry them and just fry them right before you're going to eat them. And in terms of sauce wise, if you have any kind of plum sauce, soy sauce, you can dip it in. Really, any kind of sauce like that you have from like leftover Chinese takeout, you can use to dip it in. I know some people also like sriracha sauce, so any spicy hot sauce that you prefer, you can definitely dip it in this as well. So we'll just wait for this guy to brown up, but I'm just going to show you quickly because I know you can't see inside the pot, but since putting it in for about maybe a minute or so, it already has browned up quite a bit. So I want it to be a little bit darker, so I'm just going to drop it back in for now. And then I'll show you the final product once it's done. I'm going to move this guy over and we'll get started on the noodles. So whatever protein you have, you can use. Again, tofu, tempeh, if you are not a meat eater. If you have ham, chicken, turkey, beef, shrimp, any kind of seafood, this recipe will work really, really well with. So you can definitely be creative in terms of what protein you use. I'm just going to scoop these guys out because they're done. So you can see that it is a nice, beautiful golden color, and it took like no time at all. Just put it on the plate here. And then once you're done frying your oil, if it still looks nice and clear, you don't have to throw it out. You can definitely reuse it again. So if you have other stuff that you're frying, you can definitely continue to use that same oil, or you can put it into it, let it cool fully, put it into a jar, and then you can just use it as you need to while you're cooking. Okay, so we are going to get started first with, so I have some leftover chicken. So I'm just gonna, pretend this is my chicken or turkey from Thanksgiving. From Christmas. And what you wanna do is if you have chicken or anything like that, you wanna just cut it up into pieces so that when you do your stir fry noodles, everyone gets a little bit of chicken. So you can just roughly dice it up. Since if you're going to use leftover, all of your items are pretty much cooked already, which is nice. So you don't have to really even cook it for a long time. But generally speaking, in Asian cooking, we use high heat to cook anything. And that's because back in the day when fuel cost a lot of money, they created these recipes based on, hey, let's use the least amount of fuel as possible because it's so expensive. So that's why a lot of like stir fry recipes or fried rice, fried noodle recipe that you see, everything you chop up into really fine pieces and then you cook it. And that's because we want them to all cook up really quickly and evenly. Okay, so I'm going to move the pan that I was using back onto the stove top. And again, we're going to do some garlic and some ginger like we did previously. These two ingredients are definitely in all noodle dish or fried noodle, fried rice dishes, always. And again, I use about an inch piece of ginger, but up to you in terms of what you like. I find that with noodles or fried rice dishes, you want to use a little bit more only because there's more other components to it, like, you know, the whole noodle, the rice, all your protein. It needs a little bit more help in terms of getting the Asian flavors in. Okay, so we're going to just scoop that aside here. And then same thing, 2 cloves of garlic. And if you're using pasta noodles, what you want to do is you want to just bring a pot of water like you normally do when you cook pasta and boil it for a minute less than you normally cook. So generally for pasta noodles, I cook it for 7 minutes. So I would cook it for about 6 minutes because I'm going to be cooking it again a little bit in the pan. So I don't want it to get really, really soggy and soft. So that will prevent it from happening. Just going to get the garlic cloves. And with this noodle dish, you can freeze the noodle or put the noodle in the fridge after you cook it. So in the fridge, I would say like 3-4 days you should consume it, especially since if you're using leftover proteins from a few days ago. Try to eat it within like 3 days. And then if you make the noodle dish, again, you can put it into an airtight container and you can freeze it for way, way longer, like months, so that you always have some nice noodle dish to consume. So I'm also going to use some carrot leftover. So again, if you have any kind of veggie leftover, so like Brussels sprouts, broccoli, peas, snap beans, like anything that you had for the holidays, in terms of veggie wise, you can just throw it right into your noodle dish. You can also use frozen veggies. So if you know, you ate all of the veggies during Christmas dinner, but you wanted to still add some veggies into your noodles, you can just go and open your bag of frozen veggies and throw that in there too. So I'm just going to cut up a little bit more cabbage. And if you froze your cabbage, you can just take a bag out of your freezer and just empty the whole bag into your pan and cook it from frozen. It will take like no time for it to defrost this way. And it's also really good if you have frozen cabbage to put it into soup. So once you are making soup and you want to bump it up with a little bit of veggies in it, you can just throw in a bag of frozen cabbage and add some veggies that way. Okay, so pan back on. We're going to go medium again. And same thing, we're going to add a little bit of oil from our fryer. And then we are going to add some carrots. And then all of our veggies and our meat. So I have cabbage, ginger, garlic, and our chicken that we diced up. We're just going to put all of this guy in. Just move it over so you guys can see it better. Go. So with the pan on medium, with all of the veggies, we'll just let this guy cook a little bit first before we add the seasoning and our noodles in. So with any kind of fried rice, fried noodle dish, generally you want to add in your toppings. So like your veggie toppings, your protein toppings first. And then once they soften up and cook through, then you add your noodles, rice, whatever it is. And then you add your sauce so that all of the ingredients, including your veggies, your meat, and your noodles, get all of that sauce and that flavor soaked in there. So we're gonna just stir this guy up. I wish you guys can smell it, the ginger and the garlic. If you don't normally cook with these flavors, You'll really smell it once you start cooking Asian cuisine with these flavors. It's really, really nice. It fills up the room so nicely. So once the veggies start softening up, you can go ahead and add your noodles. So your cooked noodles, pasta noodles, whatever you're using, strain it. I don't have a sink right here, but I'm just going to get all the water out I can and put the noodles in. And I make this dish very often with whatever ingredients I have. So like not even during like holiday leftover, but just clean your fridge out kind of situation. It's a great way to use up all of your leftovers in your fridge. And then once the noodles kind of soak up the flavors of the veggies and the meat, that's when I'll add the seasoning. So if you are a fan of spicy, you can definitely add whatever hot sauce you like. I like to use just good old sriracha. And again, this is up to your personal preference. If you don't like spicy or don't want to, you can omit this, but I just put a little bit in there. Soy sauce. And also a little bit of sesame oil. You can also add a little bit of Asian cooking wine if you have it. You can also add hoisin sauce. Really with Asian flavors, you can't, like if you have the usual stuff, you really can't go wrong in terms of how it tastes. And always add a little less, stir fry it together, see how it looks, give it a taste before you add too much soy sauce, because sometimes depending on what noodles you're using, it absorbs the soy sauce better than others. But if you put too much soy sauce, it'll just be way, way too salty this way. So you just want to be kind of cautious about that. So we're just gonna combine all of the ingredients in here. And then just, while we're cooking this up, one really fun thing that you guys, I don't know if you guys have used this app before, but it's called Flash Food app. And what it is pretty much grocery stores generally, like let's say they had this cabbage, but it's starting to kind of get brown on the outside. Then generally they used to just throw it in the garbage, which is painful because we can still kind of use bits and pieces of it, but they don't really think of it that way. They kind of just go, oh, I can't sell it because it's not pretty anymore, so we're going to just throw it in the garbage. Now they have an app where you can buy them, these almost or close to expiry date product at a really, really good discounted price. So you might be able to buy this cabbage that they consider bad. Instead of $1.99, it's going to be 50 cents only. And it's not all grocery stores. I would say majority of the No Frills in Hamilton will have it. But you can actually save a lot of money this way, especially if you do eat meat. You can buy meat that has an expiry date of tomorrow, for example, and you can just freeze it and it lasts a lot longer. So always be cautious in terms of the expiry and the best before date on your products in the grocery store. A lot of the times, it's not going to actually go bad on the day. Like say this soy sauce, for example, if it said the expiry date is December 15th, if you ate this on December 15th, nothing's going to happen to you, obviously with milk and cheese, you want to be more cautious of, and meat obviously, but stuff like this, if it was expiring December 15 and nobody bought this, they would just usually chuck it in the garbage. But with the app, you can potentially get this bottle of sauce for a lot cheaper, and it will probably last quite a bit afterwards too. So just check out that app. It's I've saved so much money using it. I'm not associated with them in any way, but it's just something that I personally use, which I think is really cool that they're doing. Just the fact that they're not throwing it in the garbage for no reason is really nice. So I'm going to scoop up the noodles with my spring rolls. And if you have some green onions, you can definitely top it up with some green onions for some color. But we made two dishes. in about 45 minutes or so, which is super, super quick, and it's healthy and nutritious. I'm just gonna move this over and show you guys. So a nice noodle dish with our veggie spring rolls. Do we have any questions about the ingredients, about any kind of tips for cooking leftovers? Just gonna unshare my screen here. So another really fun website that I use other than Flash Food is something called Food Fund. And what Food Fund is kind of similar, but instead of the grocery store throwing away stuff, farmers sometimes will grow, different produce, but if it doesn't look perfect and it doesn't have like the perfect shape, grocery stores might go, oh, we reject this, we don't want this. So what that company does is they work with local farmers and they sell those quote unquote ugly produce that they can't sell to families, around the city. I think they're all over GTA now, but you can get really nice produce and sometimes even organic produce for a lot cheaper, and they deliver it right to your door. So it's a nice added little bonus that way. But I mean, like, your pepper doesn't have to look perfect to be, consumed the same way. So definitely check that out as well. So it's Flash Food and then Food Fund for the second one.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joyce. That was so great hearing about how we can kind of pull together pretty much anything from our fridge and make it something unique and new and delicious. One question I had for you, and I know you touched on this a little bit, is there anything you would recommend always having in your pantry to make it a little bit easier for cooking? So whether it's oils or spices or canned goods. I know you mentioned having ginger handy for these particular dishes.
Yeah, I would say having just like a bag of frozen veggies in your freezer is always useful. Especially like, if you were, say, going on vacation for the holidays and you don't want to buy a whole bunch of fresh produce in your fridge that you might worry going bad. You don't have to do that if you have some frozen veggies available in your freezer. A lot of the times we just throw that in as extra vegetables, right? Like, I mean, everyone says we can eat more vegetables anyway. So it's just a really easy way. You don't need to prep it in any way as well. It's not like you need to peel it, wash it, or anything, or even chop it up for that matter. So it's like a really fast, no excuse, get your veggies in that way, which is really nice. I also really like to have spinach on hand for similar reason, because usually when you buy spinach, it's already pre-washed for you in a container. And it goes into any dishes really well. So if you're making like a pasta dish, you can just throw a handful of spinach in, or even like a smoothie, you can throw a handful of spinach in there to just kind of like give it a little extra greens that way. Yeah, like I just find it is such a versatile ingredient that you can throw into so many dishes, and it just adds to your nutritional value, which is great.
Great, thank you. And we have a question from Christina. Christina, feel free to pop it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself if you'd like.
Yeah, hi, I've unmuted. I'm just wondering, I was curious to see that you used a cast iron frying pan. I have a lot of cast iron frying pans, but when I do stir fries, I tend to do them in a nonstick pan for reasons that I don't know. But watching you, I'm thinking I should probably switch to cast iron. And if so, do you have any tips on specifically for cooking with cast iron?
Yeah, so I personally love cast iron. We only use cast iron at home. So one bonus is that it gives you a little bit of iron. So like a lot of women are low in iron, so it's just a little boost, which is nice, but it lasts a lifetime. So like if you have a pan, if you take care of it well, you can like pass it on to generations to come, which is a great thing, but also the fact that you're not being wasteful, because a lot of the non-stick pans, a lot of the times after a year or two, if you cook a lot, it starts becoming sticky. It's not non-stick anymore, or you scratch the surface of it and it's not as good. But with a cast iron pan, it will definitely last you a really long time. So generally speaking, we make like every meal in it, from eggs for breakfast to a noodle dish for dinner. What I do is after I use my pan, I let it cool down after I cook with it. I wash it with a little bit of soap and water. I know some people are like, no, I don't use any soap, but whatever you want to do. I just personally like to use soap because I'm cooking like raw food in it as well. I give it a good scrub, make sure any sticky bits are off. And then I take a cloth and I dry it right away. A lot of people get rust because they're not drying it right away. So you have to dry it right away. So generally I wash it, I dry it the top and the bottom fully. And then I just take a little bit of vegetable oil and I put a drop in here and then I just rub it in so that it gives it like a nice little coating. As you're cooking, what happens is it creates this like magical non-stick surface for you anyway. So every time you use it, you're kind of creating another layer, which is why it doesn't stick after you use it for a while. I would highly recommend anyone who's kind of curious about it to give it a try. If you are inheriting a cast iron pan from somebody that just like gave up on it and there's like it's sticky or it's rusty, you can save it. Like you can just give it a good scrub with some elbow grease, get all of the rust off of it, get any kind of sticky bits off of it, get it as clean as possible. Again, you want to dry it. And then you want to give, since you're scrubbing everything off in a pan that's been like not taken care of, you need to season it. And what you see in some videos online is you put oil in it and you flip it upside down, you put it in the oven and you bake it on like for like an hour. I don't know the degrees, but you can search it up. But you only need to do that if it's like really damaged and like all of the seasoning is off of it. But in terms of daily maintenance and daily use, it's super easy to maintain. Just dry it. That's the number one thing. Make sure everything is dry. Put a little bit of oil in it and away you go.
Great question, Christina. Thank you. Any other questions? Feel free to raise your hand or add them into the chat box. Maybe we'll just give it another minute or so. And Joyce, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your blog or where we can find you.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the meantime.
Yeah, so if you want to check out some other recipes, I share them on my blog, which is joyceofcooking.com. On social media, you can also find me on Instagram at Joyce of Cooking. I do some cooking classes online and starting to do them more in person now. So if you're ever interested in seeing some live cooking classes, check the website or check my social media. In the next couple of weeks, I should have more posted. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Okay, and we have one more comment. Joyce, can you please repeat the name of the app you mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. So Flash Food is the app that you can go to No Frills and get cheap products that are almost expiring. And then the second one is Food Fund, so F-U-N-D, and that you can order on their website for produce. It's all only produce that are not as pretty as they need to be for the grocery store.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I am officially hungry right now, as I'm sure everyone else is watching in. Well, thank you so much, Joyce. This was really great and inspiring. I just want to like get in the kitchen and get cooking. So thank you very much for walking us through these.
Thank you so much for having me and happy cooking.
Thank you. And so we'll just go ahead and wrap up. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Hope you learned a few things. I'm sure you did. I know I did. A reminder to any students online with us, today's session does qualify as a co-curricular activity. Please follow the link to the attendance form in the chat with the details provided. And as we wrap up, I just want to mention a few other upcoming virtual events available to Mohawk graduates and students. So this Thursday, December 9th, you can join us for a Career Ready webinar on working and living in times of change. Mohawk Alumni also hosts monthly trivia every third Thursday of the month. The next event is on December 16th, which is next Thursday, and the theme is all things Disney, which will be fun. And lastly, in the new year, we will have a virtual tea and chocolate tasting with Hamilton-based company Monarch Tea, which will take place January 19th. And to sign up for these events, you can visit mohawkcollege.ca/alumni events. My colleague Lindsay will also add them in the chat box, the links for those events. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today and for staying connected with Mohawk. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day. Bye for now. Take care.
Bye, take care. Thank you so much.